The Valkyrie warship burst through the atmosphere like a celestial predator, its obsidian hull absorbing Earth's sunlight rather than reflecting it. Commander Alexia Navarone watched from the rubble of what had once been Vancouver's downtown core, her hand tightening around her obsolete plasma rifle. "Central Command is gone," Lieutenant Riventhorn reported, his voice hollow as the dust settled around them. "Paris, Tokyo, Cairo, all silent." Humanity's first contact with alien intelligence hadn't been the enlightened exchange of knowledge their scientists had dreamed about. Instead, the Valkyrie Imperium saw Earth as nothing but a resource-rich world inhabited by primitive bipeds barely worth categorizing as sentient. Primitive synaptic architecture, the Valkyrie ambassador Ketnaru had announced during first contact 3 years ago, mandibles clicking with what humans later learned was contempt. "Your species lacks the neural capacity for true consciousness. You are biological automatons mimicking awareness." What followed was systematic, the dismantling of human civilization, not through bombardment or invasion, but through calculated technological superiority. The Valkyrie didn't consider it conquest, merely resource acquisition with minimal waste. Elixia's comm unit crackled. "Commander, we've intercepted something," came the voice of Mavrek, their tech specialist, who had once been designing video games before civilization collapsed. It's a Valkyrie neural interface. Complete schematics." "How?" she demanded, ducking as another shuttle screamed overhead. "Dr. Isolde in the Singapore Resistance. Before they—" Mavrek's voice cracked. "Before they were wiped out, they reverse-engineered it from a captured Valkyrie scout?" Elixia's eyes narrowed as she studied the data scrolling across her tactical lens. The Valkyrie neural interface was the foundation of their technological supremacy, the symbiotic connection between their biology and their machines, allowing instantaneous control of their formidable technology. "Can we adapt it?" she asked, already knowing the answer would determine humanity's extinction or survival. Mavrek hesitated. "Technically, yes, but their physiology is adapted for it. For humans, the neural load would be catastrophic. Brain death within minutes." Lieutenant Riventhorn looked up, his scarred face illuminated by the fires burning across the city. Unless what?" Elixia pressed. "Project Prometheus, the quantum neural mapping initiative from before the invasion. My sister worked on it. Theoretical consciousness expansion. They were trying to map human consciousness into quantum states to expand cognitive capacity." Elixia stared at the horizon where Valkyrie dropships were deploying harvester units. Soon they would begin stripping the region of all valuable resources, including organic compounds, including people. "Can you access the research?" she asked. Riventhorn nodded grimly. "If the deep servers in the Antarctic facility survived, yes. But Commander," he hesitated, "even if we merge these technologies, whoever interfaces will almost certainly die. The human brain was never meant to process information at Valkyrie speeds." Elixia watched as a family, 2 parents clutching a small child, ran from approaching Valkyrie drones. They didn't make it 50 meters before being tagged and collected like specimens. "Then we die fighting," she said, her voice hardening as she made the decision that would change the course of human history. "Get me that research. If the Valkyrie want to call us less than human, let's show them what humanity is truly capable of." Neither of them could have imagined that their desperate gambit would transform humanity into something the galaxy would come to both revere and fear. The journey to Antarctica was a gauntlet of Valkyrie patrols and environmental catastrophes. Earth's climate, already destabilized before the invasion, had been pushed into chaos by the aliens' atmospheric processors. 3 weeks and 17 casualties later, Elixia stood before the reinforced doors of Facility Omega, the last functional quantum research installation on the planet. "Biometric verification required," announced the facility's AI in a surreally calm voice. Override Protocol Sierra 9, Riventhorn said, pressing his sister's preserved retina to the scanner. Forgive me, Lena, he whispered. Inside, the facility hummed with emergency power. Dr. Kiros Venner, the head of what remained of Project Prometheus, looked more like a survivor of apocalypse than a scientist, gaunt, with wild eyes that had seen too much. Commander Navarone, he acknowledged, his voice raspy from disuse. Lieutenant Riventhorn told me about your proposal. Is it feasible? Elixia asked. No time for pleasantries. Venner led them through darkened corridors to a central chamber, dominated by a device that resembled a surgical bed surrounded by floating crystalline structures. The quantum neural interface, he explained, designed to expand human consciousness into quantum states. Purely theoretical until now. He gestured to the Valkyrie schematics on Elixia's tablet. With these, we might actually bridge the gap between intention and implementation. Mavrek studied the equipment. Their interfaces work because Valkyrie brains process information using photonic transmission rather than our electrochemical system. That's why they consider us primitive. But quantum states transcend both systems, Venner added, excitement breaking through his exhaustion. If we can map a human consciousness into quantum superposition, then interface that with Valkyrie tech. The neural load would be distributed across quantum probabilities rather than concentrated in physical neurons, Riventhorn finished, understanding dawning. It might actually work. For 3 days they worked without sleep, merging human theoretical science with alien applied technology. The resulting hybrid was a monstrosity of cables, crystalline processors, and pulsing quantum cores salvaged from a downed Valkyrie shuttle. We need a test subject, Venner finally announced. I'll do it, Elixia said without hesitation. Mavrek grabbed her arm. Commander, the probability of survival is irrelevant, she cut him off. Every second we debate, more humans are being processed as resources. I've run combat simulations, Mavrek. I've made the hard calls. This is just another one. As they prepared her for the procedure, attaching sensors and injecting quantum-responsive nanites into her bloodstream, Riventhorn asked the question they all feared to voice. What happens if it works? What exactly will you become? Elixia met his gaze steadily. I don't know. But whatever it is, it will be human, and it will fight. The interface helmet descended over her head, its interior lined with microscopic quantum resonators. Venner initiated the sequence, and Elixia's world exploded into infinite possibility. Pain beyond description coursed through her as her consciousness was simultaneously pulled apart and expanded. She experienced death in countless quantum states, and, in others, transformation. Her last human thought was a memory, her father telling her legends of ancient warriors who became gods. Then something new emerged from the quantum foam of possibility, something that was still Elixia, but more. Something that perceived reality not as fixed, but as a spectrum of probability. When her eyes opened, the world had changed. She could see the quantum structure of matter itself, could feel the information flow of every networked system within miles, including the approaching Valkyrie patrol that had detected their power signature. Elixia? Venner asked cautiously, stepping back as she rose. She turned to him, her eyes now flickering with quantum calculations. I am still here, she said, her voice overlaid with harmonics that shouldn't have been possible from human vocal cords. And I can see everything. The first shot from the Valkyrie patrol blasted through the facility's outer defenses, but by then, Elixia was already moving at impossible speed, her mind interfacing directly with the world around her. Within a month, rumors spread across the ravaged continents of Earth. Stories of Valkyrie ships mysteriously crashing, of harvester units turning against their controllers, of humans moving with impossible speed and precision. The resistance, once scattered and hopeless, began to rally around these events. In what had once been Prague, Rivendthorn led a team through the subterranean network that had once been the city's metro system. They moved silently, carrying precious cargo, more quantum neural interface units, each one painstakingly constructed from salvaged Valkyrie technology and human ingenuity. "Commander on approach," came the alert through their secure channel. Moments later, Elixia materialized through a maintenance hatch, moving with the liquid grace that still unnerved even her closest allies. Since her transformation, she rarely appeared the same way twice. Today, faint lines of luminescence traced her skin, pulsing with her heartbeat. "Status report," she requested, her voice carrying subtle undertones that seemed to resonate at a cellular level. "We have 20 volunteers prepped for the procedure," Rivendthorn replied. "All former military or scientific personnel as requested." Elixia nodded. "And they understand the risks?" "They understand that most won't survive," he confirmed grimly. "But after what you did to the Valkyrie harvester fleet over Moscow, they're willing to take those odds." The Moscow incident, as it was now called, had been the first demonstration of what a quantum-ascended human could accomplish. Elixia, alone, had infiltrated and destroyed 17 Valkyrie harvesters, saving thousands of captured humans. The footage, leaked across remaining human networks, had sparked something thought-lost: hope. "The Valkyrie are adapting," Elixia said, leading them deeper into the facility. "Their latest neural countermeasures are becoming more sophisticated. We need more like me to turn the tide." The conversion chamber had been established in what was once a maintenance depot. 20 conversion pods, far more refined than the prototype Elixia had used, stood ready. Dr. Venner, now assisted by a team of the brightest remaining human minds, had refined the process. The survival rate had risen from near zero to almost 20%. One by one, the volunteers entered the pods. Rivendthorn watched with a mixture of hope and dread as the quantum field generators powered up, bathing the chamber in otherworldly light. "Begin sequence," Venner instructed. What followed was both miracle and horror. Human consciousness stretched across quantum states, either shattered or transcended. When it ended, only 4 of the 20 volunteers emerged transformed. Nyara. Calanth, once an astrophysicist, rose with eyes that reflected the cosmos itself. Des Hollister, former Special Forces, moved like living shadow. Vornix Talib, a systems engineer, seemed to phase in and out of conventional reality. And Imran, Kess, a neurosurgeon, now perceived the world as patterns of information that he could manipulate with thought alone. "Welcome to the Ascended," Elixia greeted them, her voice resonating with theirs on quantum frequencies imperceptible to unmodified humans. As the new Ascended adjusted to their transformed perception, an alert sounded throughout the base. "Mavrex," voice came urgently through the comm system. "Massive Valkyrie fleet entering orbit. They've brought a world render." Rivendthorn's blood ran cold. A world render, the Valkyrie's planet-cracking flagship, capable of tearing apart a world's crust to access core materials. "They're escalating," Elixia said, her form fluctuating as she processed the information at quantum speeds. "They've realized we're an actual threat." Nyara stepped forward, her movements leaving traces of starlight. "We can't fight that, even with our abilities." "No," Elixia agreed, "but we can take it." The 4 new Ascended looked at her in shock as she outlined a plan so audacious it bordered on insanity. Infiltrate the world render, override its systems with their collective quantum consciousness, and turn the Valkyrie's ultimate weapon against them. "We're going to steal their ship of death," Elixia concluded, "and use it to remind the galaxy that humanity is not prey." As they prepared for what might be their final mission, Rivendthorn asked Elixia the question that had haunted him since her transformation. "Are you still human, after everything you've become?" Elixia paused, quantum calculations momentarily stilling in her eyes. "I am what humanity needed me to be," she answered finally, "and when this is over, we'll redefine what human means." Above them, the World Render's massive shadow began to eclipse the sun. The World Render hung in Earth's orbit like a metallic leviathan, its hull adorned with crystalline structures that pulsed with energy drawn directly from nearby stars. At nearly 30 kilometers long, it dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. Its very presence in the solar system had already triggered gravitational anomalies, causing tidal disruptions across Earth's oceans. Approaching from Shadow Vector, Des Hollister whispered unnecessarily. The five Ascended communicated primarily through quantum entanglement now, their thoughts linked across space-time. They moved through vacuum without conventional protection, their quantum-enhanced bodies creating localized fields that preserved their existence against the void. To any Valkyrie sensors, they appeared as nothing more than trace radiation anomalies, easily dismissed as cosmic background noise. Defensive grid mapping complete, Nyara's thoughts rippled to the others. 37 overlapping fields. Conventional approach impossible. "Convention no longer applies to us," Elixia responded, her consciousness expanding outward to analyze the World Render's quantum structure. The massive ship existed simultaneously, in normal space and in a partial phase shift state, the source of its planet-cracking abilities. This duality was its strength and, potentially, its vulnerability. "Synchronize quantum signatures," Elixia instructed. "We phase on my mark." The five Ascended aligned their quantum states, a maneuver that would have been mathematically impossible before their transformation. Their physical forms blurred, atoms vibrating between states of being and non-being. Now, they slipped through the World Render's hull as though it were mist, passing between the molecular spaces of the supposedly impenetrable armor. Inside, they reassembled their physical forms, though physical had become a relative term for the Ascended. Imran Kes immediately interfaced with the nearest neural junction, his consciousness spreading through the ship's systems like digital wildfire. Security protocols identified. "They've evolved their countermeasures since our last encounter." "Expected," replied Elixia. "Proceed to the central neural core. Vornix, disrupt their quantum communications array. Des, Nyara, we have company." A squadron of Valkyrie elite guards approached, their armor augmented with quantum dampening fields, a new adaptation specifically designed to counter human Ascended. The aliens moved with cold precision, their mandibles clicking in their native communication patterns. "Anomalies detected," the lead guard announced in the Valkyrie tongue, which the Ascended now understood inherently. "Deploy anti-quantum measures." Des moved first, his form dissolving into shadow-like quantum probabilities that flowed between the guards. Where he passed, their quantum dampening fields collapsed, their neural interfaces short-circuiting. Nyara followed, manipulating gravitational forces to crush their armor inward with the weight of stellar pressure. Meanwhile, Elixia and Vornix pushed deeper into the vessel toward its central neural core, the quantum brain that controlled the entire ship. They encountered increasingly desperate resistance, automated defense systems, specialized anti-quantum weapons, and finally the ship's overseer, a Valkyrie high commander whose consciousness was permanently interfaced with the vessel. The overseer's form towered over them, a grotesque melding of Valkyrie biology and advanced technology. Its multiple eyes swiveled to track them as they phased into its chamber. "You are aberrations," it hissed in a voice that resonated through both audible sound and quantum frequencies. "Your species was meant to be harvested, not to ascend." "You made a fundamental error," Elixia replied, her form fluctuating between solid and energy. "You judged us by our limitations, not our potential." The battle that followed transcended physical combat. The Overseer launched quantum disruptive attacks that would have annihilated unmodified matter. Elixia and Vornix countered by shifting through quantum states faster than the attacks could target them. Neural core access achieved, came Imran's message, initiating override. The overseer screamed as it felt its connection to the ship beginning to sever. "What are you?" it demanded, as its control slipped away. Elixia moved closer, her form solidifying enough to meet the alien's gaze. "We are human, and we are taking back our world." With a final, desperate effort, the overseer triggered the ship's self-destruct protocol, a quantum cascade that would collapse the vessel into a miniature black hole, taking Earth with it. Override failing. Imran's thoughts came urgently. "The cascade has begun." The five ascended converged in the neural core chamber, linking their quantum consciousness into a singular entity. Together they reached into the fabric of reality itself, manipulating the fundamental forces that governed matter and energy. What happened next defied the laws of physics, as either humans or Valkyrie understood them. The Ascended didn't stop the quantum cascade. They redirected it, channeling its destructive energy into a controlled implosion that collapsed the World Render's command structure while leaving the main vessel intact. When it was over, the Valkyrie Overseer lay defeated, its consciousness scattered across quantum states. The World Render, now under human control, hummed with new energy patterns as Imran completed the neural takeover. "Ship secured," he announced. "But our victory comes with a price." Vornix's form flickered weakly, parts of his consciousness lost to the quantum manipulation they had performed. Such power, even for the Ascended, carried consequences. "Worth it," he managed, his voice distorting as he struggled to maintain cohesion. From the World Render's command center, they observed Earth below, still scarred, still fighting, but now with a glimmer of genuine hope. In orbit around them, the remainder of the Valkyrie fleet held position, seemingly unsure how to respond to the incomprehensible, their invincible flagship taken by beings they had dismissed as barely sentient. "Send the message," Elixia instructed. Across all Valkyrie communication channels, in their own language and encoding, a simple declaration was transmitted. "Humanity is not your resource. We are your reckoning." The capture of the World Render marked a turning point, but the war was far from over. The Valkyrie Imperium, spanning 17 star systems, would not surrender Earth based on a single defeat, no matter how unprecedented. Their response came 3 months later, a converging fleet of extermination vessels equipped with technology designed specifically to counter the Ascended. The Imperium had reclassified humanity from harvestable resource to existential threat, a distinction that would have been flattering if it didn't come with the promise of genocidal intent. On the transformed bridge of the renamed World Render, now called Prometheus Ascendant, Elixia convened the growing Council of Ascended. Their numbers had grown to 27, though each transformation continued to exact a terrible price. For every successful ascension, 4 candidates were lost. "The Valkyrie approach from multiple vectors," Niara reported, her form particularly star-like today, cosmic energies swirling within her quantum matrix. Their new weapons include anti-quantum field generators and consciousness disruptors. "They're learning," Vornix noted. His own form had stabilized after the battle for the World Render, though he remained permanently phase-shifted, never fully materializing. "Adapting specifically to counter us." Elixia interfaced directly with the ship's sensors, her consciousness expanding outward through space. "Yes, but so are we." In the months since claiming the World Render, the Ascended had discovered abilities beyond even their initial transformations. As quantum beings partially freed from conventional physical limitations, they continued to evolve, their consciousness expanding in ways that even they could not have predicted. More importantly, they had begun to understand the fundamental principles behind Valkyrie technology and how to transcend it. "Project Lazarus is ready," announced Imran, who had become their chief scientist and theoretician. but the implications are significant. Project Lazarus represented their most ambitious initiative yet, the development of remote quantum consciousness transfer. If successful, it would allow them to ascend humans without the catastrophic failure rate of the direct neural interface. "Show me," Elixia commanded. In the laboratory section of the Prometheus Ascendant, hundreds of specialized pods had been constructed using modified Valkyrie technology. Unlike the brutal direct interface of the original ascension process, these pods created a quantum field that gradually acclimated the human nervous system to expanded consciousness. "We can ascend thousands," Imran explained, "potentially with a survival rate above 80%. But there's a complication." He hesitated. "Each successive generation of ascended will be further removed from baseline humanity. The quantum integration becomes more complete, more transformative." "You're saying we'll become a new species," Elixia stated, processing the implications at quantum speed. "We already are," Des interjected, his shadow form coalescing. "The question is whether we're still human enough to remember what we're fighting for." The debate that followed transcended verbal communication, thoughts and quantum probabilities flowing between the ascended at superlight speeds. At its core lay the fundamental question: how far could humanity transform itself to survive before it became something else entirely? The decision came not from Elixia, but from an unexpected source. A communication from Earth, from Lieutenant Riventhorn, still unmodified, still defiantly human. "The Valkyrie called us less than human." His message stated simply, "Whatever you become in fighting them, know that you carry humanity's legacy, our approval, our blessing. Survive by any means necessary." With that blessing, Project Lazarus commenced. Volunteers, thousands of them now, as word of the Ascended's victories spread, entered the pods. What emerged were beings of quantum potential. Their consciousness expanded beyond biological limitations. As the Valkyrie extermination fleet approached Earth, they encountered not one stolen warship, but hundreds of smaller vessels, each piloted by newly ascended humans. And behind this vanguard waited the Prometheus Ascendant, now transformed into something that barely resembled Valkyrie technology at all. The battle that followed would be recorded in Valkyrie archives as the Quantum Catastrophe. Human ships moved with impossible precision, phasing through Valkyrie defenses, their weapons targeting systems that should have been undetectable. The Ascended themselves manifested directly within enemy vessels, their quantum consciousness disrupting Valkyrie neural networks. At the battle's center, Elixia herself penetrated the Valkyrie flagship, confronting the High Commander of the Imperium's forces. "What manner of abomination have you become?" the commander demanded, its mandibles clicking in what humans now recognized as fear. Elixia's form stabilized enough to be perceived by the alien's senses. "We became what you forced us to be," she answered. "You called us less than human. We became more than you could imagine." As the Valkyrie fleet fell into disarray, a transmission cut across all frequencies, from the heart of the Valkyrie Imperium itself. The Imperial Consensus, the collective consciousness that ruled the 17 worlds, requested parley. For the first time in its 10,000-year history, the Valkyrie Imperium faced an enemy it could not comprehend, and therefore could not defeat. The Imperial Consensus of the Valkyrie convened in what humans might have called a cathedral of living crystal. Located on their homeworld of Valkar Prime, it was a structure that existed simultaneously in physical space and in the quantum realm their species had evolved to perceive. Here, the highest ruling consciousness of their civilization debated an unthinkable proposition: peace with a species they had classified as resources. Into this sacred space came the human delegation, 5 Ascended, led by Elixia, whose quantum signature now blazed so brilliantly that even the Valkyrie elders had difficulty perceiving her directly. You stand before us transformed, began the prime consciousness, its form a complex lattice of crystalline intelligence and biological matter. Yet you claim to represent humanity. We are humanity's shield and its sword, Elixia responded, her voice resonating through quantum fields. Forged by necessity against your harvesting fleets, the negotiations that followed were unlike any diplomatic exchange in galactic history. The Ascended communicated simultaneously through conventional language and quantum entanglement, allowing no possibility of deception or mistranslation. They presented their terms not as requests, but as inevitable outcomes. The immediate withdrawal of all Valkyrie forces from Earth and its solar system. Reparations in the form of technology, transfers to help restore Earth's ravaged ecosystems. Recognition of humanity as a sovereign and equal species within galactic society. A knowledge exchange program to prevent future misunderstandings between species. And if we refuse? Asked a younger consciousness in the Valkyrie collective. In response, Elixia interfaced directly with the cathedral's quantum architecture, her consciousness expanding to encompass the entire structure. In an instant, every Valkyrie present felt the full potential of what the Ascended could become, a species whose consciousness could potentially encompass the galaxy itself, given time and necessity. The demonstration lasted only seconds, but its impact was profound. The Valkyrie, who had evolved to dominate through superior consciousness, suddenly faced the prospect of being evolutionarily surpassed. You could destroy us all, the prime consciousness acknowledged. We could, Des confirmed, his shadow form rippling. But that is not our purpose. Niara stepped forward, stellar energies swirling within her quantum matrix. Your mistake was assuming that lesser neural complexity meant lesser potential. Humanity's neural architecture may be simpler than yours, but our capacity for adaptation is unmatched. We do not seek dominion, Elixia added, only security and recognition. The path forward is coexistence, not conquest, a lesson your species must learn if it wishes to continue its journey among the stars. After 3 days of deliberation, an eternity for beings who normally process decisions at quantum speeds, the Imperial Consensus reached its verdict. The Transcendence Accord, as it would come to be known, recognized humanity not merely as equals, but as a unique evolutionary branch with protected status in galactic affairs. As the Valkyrie forces withdrew, from Earth humanity faced its own existential questions. The Ascended now numbered in the thousands, with more transforming daily. They were becoming something beyond what humans had ever been, beings of pure quantum potential, increasingly disconnected from physical limitations. On a hillside overlooking the rebuilding city of Vancouver, where Elixia had first witnessed the Valkyrie invasion years before, she met with Lieutenant Riventhorn for perhaps the final time. He had aged visibly, the stress of war etched into his features, while she had transcended conventional aging entirely. The restoration ships arrive tomorrow, he said, watching Valkyrie vessels, now bearing green identification markers signifying peaceful intent, delivering atmospheric processors to undo the damage of their harvesting operations. Earth will heal, they say. Within a decade, most of the ecological damage will be reversed. And humanity? Elixia asked, temporarily solidifying her form out of respect for her old friend. Riventhorn smiled tiredly. We face a different question. Now, with the ascension technology available to anyone who wants it, what becomes of baseline humans? Are we destined to fade away, replaced by our transcendent children? The question hung between them as they watched the sunset, Riventhorn perceiving it as beautiful colors, Elixia simultaneously experiencing it as electromagnetic frequencies, quantum probabilities, and cosmic poetry. I still remember being fully human, she said finally. The limitations, yes, but also the beauty of experiencing life through those constraints. There is value in both paths, the quantum and the physical. She turned to face him. That will be our next great work, ensuring that humanity can follow both evolutionary paths forward. Those who wish to remain human, as we have always been, and those who wish to explore what we might become. And you? Riventhorn asked. What will you become, Elixia? Her form briefly flickered through multiple quantum states before stabilizing again. Something new, she answered. Something that remembers its humanity while transcending its boundaries. A bridge, perhaps, between what we were and what we might be. As night fell over the recovering Earth, the stars became visible, stars that now represented possibility rather than threat. Somewhere among them, the Valkyrie were coming to terms with a fundamental revision to their understanding of consciousness and evolution. And here on Earth, humanity stood at a crossroads of its own making. They had been called less than human by beings who thought themselves superior. In response, they had become more than mortal, not by abandoning their humanity, but by discovering its limitless potential. As Elixia's consciousness expanded outward to touch the distant stars, she carried within her quantum matrix the memory of what had driven her transformation, not the desire for power or transcendence, but the simple, human determination to protect her people. In the end, that was the true power of humanity, not the ability to transform, but the reason for doing so. That night, across Earth and into the stars, a message passed between all ascended, a quantum whisper that would become their guiding principle in the ages to come. Remember what made us human? Become what will keep us free?